la jolie Rochelle, en revenant de la jolie Rochelle, j'ai rencontré trois jolies demoiselles, celles l'aviron qui...
David Thompson was North America's greatest geographer, cartographer that ever lived and probably ever will live. During his sojourns throughout the West, from Montreal right over to the Pacific coast, he mapped 1.5 million square miles with instruments similar to what we have here. Thompson in his early days broke a leg and took over a year to heal, and while he was laid up in the fur trade fort, Philip Turner, who was a cartographer as well, and taught him the use of the sextant. And the use of the sextant is the key to the navigation and the precision that Thompson got into his sightings and whatnot. In many places he had to use an artificial horizon to create, but Thompson, when he had time, could stop and take sightings with the sextant, and by shooting on different stars and planets and utilizing a table that was provided to him of navigation table, and using mathematical calculations, he could pinpoint where he was with both latitude and longitude. Of course, the instruments that he carried were extremely expensive, and when Thompson got further along in his work with the Hudson Bay Company, instead of his usual treat of clothes and whatnot, he asked for a set of his own instruments, and they were provided to him, and the Hudson Bay actually gave him a set as well as his other thing, because he had done such a good job on his first trip out. I believe his first jaunt out, he traveled round trip something like 4,000 miles by canoe and by foot in the Arctic wastelands to lead on. And anyway, the sextant was a naval instrument, and is set up so that you can hold it and sight and get your individual readings on it. It's very complicated and takes an extreme amount of work. Sometimes calculations can run you 2 or 3 hours to finish all the calculations. So, and he would have to do these out in the field. So he carried the sextant with him, and some of the other items he carried, of course, he carried a telescope, and this was mainly to they would use this for anything from spotting game to seeing where they were going and whatnot. As Thompson traveled down the river, most of the time he was writing in his journals and using a compass. Now this is a brass compass that also has a sundial on it. The other part of Thompson's gear was a handheld watch that was extremely accurate, and by doing some of the sightings he could reset time and knew whether he was plus or minus on his clock, etc. But as he traveled by canoe, if you note on Thompson's journal excerpt that you can see, he would hold the compass, and as he was paddling down the river or up the river, he would take a reading and it would be north by northeast or whatever declination it needed, or whatever degrees he was traveling. And he would say, we traveled north-northeast a quarter of a mile, then a half, northeast by east. And his journals contain just continuous accountings of those. And 20 years later, when he went to make his great map, he would take those journals with those readings, and that's how he drew the rivers and the mountains, and everything that was contained on that map came out of those journals from his notes. And the accuracy is unbelievable, as many of the people that are involved with this celebration of his achievements will tell you, that any of the surveyors and whatnot that are into, they can't believe how accurate he is with his readings and whatnot. So the other part of his daily chores was to write in his journal, and he had a journal notation for every day. It might have been short if they were in camp, just to say weathered in the camp, or it may be a day of travel with a notation of who they met, if one of the voyageurs got sick, what they ate, what the weather was like, the wildlife, the fauna that he saw. It's a real glimpse into what the country was really like. He also did sketches of some of the areas that he traveled in, and later colored them in with watercolors when he got back to writing his memoirs and doing the map and whatnot as well. Most of the journals are in archives now, and have been some of them have been translated or redefined, not redefined, but defined by people like Barbara Bellier with her Columbia journals, and they're very difficult to read, but once you know the shorthand script that he used in them, then it becomes much more legible to the average person.